The Duluth Public School District is the largest in our region, and last week the Duluth School Board voted on its education plan for the fall. Duluth's new school leader will be charged with carrying out that plan amid the uncertainty of the pandemic. And so joining us now is John Magus, on the job since July as Duluth School Superintendent. Superintendent, welcome so much to the program tonight. Great to have you with us.
Great to be here, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very kindly. Now, obviously you have found that this is quite a challenge to just start a new job, and as big as this, with a pandemic taking place. How do you balance, do you think, the health decisions with what might be best for the students?
I think that's really the essential question to all of this. How do you work to make sure that you're maximizing safety for students and staff and families while trying to make sure learning is an engaging opportunity as possible for the kids? And sometimes in this situation, the two most important things for a district to keep kids safe and to make sure they learn, sometimes it becomes a balance between the two and making sure that you're making the right choice.
As we saw in that piece before I introduced you, some parents don't think it's safe to send children to the classroom. What do you say to them?
Sure. I think it's important for all parents to be able to make a choice, and that's why when we put forward our plan for Duluth, we offer distance learning, not just the distance learning we had in an emergency setting, but an enhanced distance learning for our students. So students have that choice, parents have that choice to engage in that distance learning, or right now we're looking at the hybrid model for both secondary and elementary, which allows for some in-person learning, but with many extra safety precautions with distancing, extra cleaning, many things.
So can you walk us a little bit more through the plan the district came up with and finalized?
Sure. So the plan is based on the governor's order to ensure that we had 3 plans ready, and those 3 plans were distance learning, or enhanced distance learning in the case of Duluth, hybrid, which is a combination of distance learning and in-person learning. So in-person learning is basically when everybody is there face-to-face. There are still safety precautions, but it's generally only put in place when things are not as severe. Recently, a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, the governor announced that there were a variety of different safety measures that they wanted us to look at. They wanted us to consider the number of COVID cases per 10,000 in the county and go with a model based on that. So in doing so, we actually chose a model that was not according to what exactly according to what the guidelines were based on the number. It's actually considered a couple of steps more safe than what was intended. And we did so because we wanted to make sure that the first priority of making sure kids were safe and families were safe, that's one that we really have to adhere to.
So on the first day of school, what's going to happen? Will the schools themselves be open for in-class learning?
So we are going to have a period of engagement and welcoming activities. There will be some opportunities for in-person meeting of teachers and things of that nature, but it's also focused on making sure that our distance learning and hybrid learning and the procedures for safety are all put in place. So it's a lot of welcoming opportunities, engagement and learning, and an opportunity for parents to really understand what our new system will look like. Because we're really moving forward with a couple of new technology measures that I think will be new and important for families.
Sure.
And I can talk about that as well.
I would imagine that teachers must be feeling some nervousness too about going back to the classroom. John, what are you hearing from them?
I think it's really difficult because I'm hearing from teachers and other staff that they're in the field because they love kids and they want to be with kids and they care about kids. They're also concerned about their own safety and they're concerned about the safety of kids, of our students. So it's a balance of really wishing they could be there, but also wanting to make sure that they're as safe as possible.
If you discovered that COVID is being transmitted in the schools, is there a plan to deal with that?
Yes. We are working to be really responsive, and we're working with the state and county health officials, as well as seeking CDC guidance. So we're ready to, if necessary, we're able to close down schools, we're able to close down particular classrooms. We're also available to shift models if need be. So if we had to go from a hybrid model to a distance learning model, we would be ready to do so very quickly.
When it comes to making a decision whether to send kids to the classroom or do some at-home learning, I would assume that's left to the parents, not the school district?
So it's on an individual basis, it's left to the parents. So the parents always have a choice. They can do the distance learning. In the distance learning, when we had to close and do things on an emergency basis, it was packets. Now we have learning management systems, we have devices, and that's a better choice, a better option for folks. But we really also know that some kids benefit more from being in person, and so if we can have some in-person education, we think it's really critical that we offer that.
You mentioned distance learning a few times in our conversation here, and it made it sound like distance learning today is going to be far different from what it was like in the spring. It almost sounds like it was an experiment back then. What's changed?
Sure. So what happened in March in districts across the country is at the flip of a switch, we shut off our in-person learning and switched to doing the best that we could based on the current reality, the current resources, and also it was very challenging for people to be able to get devices and materials to students. So it was an emergency distance learning, an emergency plan that was put into place. But we really have to make sure that we're learning as much as possible from the events that occurred and making improvements on how we're delivering education. So we focused on professional learning for our staff. We focused on buying new devices for our students, making sure that we had hotspots and internet connectivity for all of our students. That was huge. And we're also we're buying a learning management system for secondary called Canvas, and one for elementary called Seesaw. And it really allows the teachers and the parents and the students to all connect through that learning management system.
It was expressed in the video piece we saw before we started to talk. The question was raised, how do you keep masks on very young kids, kindergarten, first graders?
Sure. So we have had a lot of opportunity to see what that looks like with some of our summer programming and early childhood education. And for some students, it is a challenge, but we have seen that our students are wearing masks and they're getting used to it. It's not easy. This is a sacrifice that we're all having to make, but it's something that we need to do to ensure safety.
A lot of kids are transported to and from school by school bus. Can you address the school bus issue a little bit with distance? With trying to keep some kind of a distance between each of us, that's going to mean small populations of students in the buses.
Sure. So, and that's a particular challenge in Duluth because, as we know, it's a really long, really narrow district. But the capacity of the buses, we're keeping them to 50% or under, and we are making sure that the buses are filling from the back rather than kids just coming in and sitting wherever they may. And we're also looking at as we get a couple weeks in, we'll be able to have assigned seating very, very quickly in the school year so that once we know who's riding the bus for sure, they can have an assigned seat and we know who's been around them. So if there's ever an issue, we can make sure that we're able to do good contact tracing.
Superintendent, student registration forms are required this year. Has that always been, or is this something new?
Well, I would have to learn a little bit more about the history of the process. Most districts...
What are you trying to learn through those
Basically,
forms?
so our new registration process, what we're trying to learn is how many students are going to be coming to us in person, how many students are interested in distance learning, and we're also asking a lot of questions in that form related to who needs a device, who has a need for a Wi-Fi hotspot, are there childcare needs? So it's really important that we have as many families as possible fill out that survey because it lets us know the basic information so we can be really well prepared for them.
In the few seconds we have left, obviously this is going to be experimental as you jump into it. You need a plan, you've got a plan. Subject to change pretty regularly? It could be subject to immediate change if there was an immediate concern. Just like a snow day, we might have to make sure that we call something if something is occurring. But we're also forming a district committee. It is a district advisory committee made up of parents, teachers, school leaders, community leaders who will be
taking part in conversation around when would we switch and why would we switch. So if we will have decision-making criteria, but we'll be as careful as possible to make sure we're well planned and that we're ready to engage students in safe and worthwhile learning.
John Magus, Duluth School Superintendent, thank you very kindly.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine.
Thank you.